Alright kid family, welcome back to the channel guys. On this video I have the eBay TB25 turbocharger here. We are messing with it. We currently are clocking it, adjusting it. We got two different wastegates here that we are trying to mock up so it fits. We got mounting brackets and whatnot. Again, it has to be clocked properly, it has to be aligned properly, and it has to boost properly. We're going to be doing a few things. For example, we are going to be trying to bore out the wastegate hole right here, the wastegate flap hole, just so we can get better boost control. Again, we want to lower the boost pressure, and hopefully changing it to this wastegate here, which is a 5-pound wastegate, works better than the 8-pound wastegate. We're going to have to double check this. We got an air compressor. We're going to feed some pressure into the wastegate, and we're going to be observing the flap opening and closing, and we'll see which wastegate works better so we can finally make that decision and go from there. Alright guys, in order for this wastegate to fit properly and mount, we actually had to flip the mounting surface a little bit. We actually re-drilled some holes for the wastegate so it fits properly, and there's better vacuum line routing from that nipple right there to this nipple right here. We're going to place this here, and what you can see, we are not able to utilize that hole for this setup once we clock the turbo. So we're going to be doing something like this, and we're going to be tapping a hole actually right over here, right around this area. We got a tap and die set that we got from Bullet's Garage. We're going to be tapping this number right here, a 6-1.0 millimeter tap. We're going to punch this out right here, tap it in, and then hopefully we are going to be able to have everything aligned and clocked properly. Now the wastegate hole, as you guys already know, needs to get ported out as well. Small little hole. We got a couple bits and pieces here that we got from Harbor Freights, and we're gonna try to knock that out. Now, one thing I do have to show you guys is the difference in wastegates. Now this is the Rev 9 5-pound spring, and here you have your factory 8-pound spring. And a couple things that you can see is this is much longer, and we might have to keep tapping this so we can make the extension, the arm, shorter. So if we can tap some threads here, maybe cut some off on the bottom, we should be able to use it. I still got to test it which wastegate actuator actually is less, creates less boost pressure, because again, we're going with the smallest boost pressure possible. I want 5 pounds. This is a 5-pound spring, 8-pound spring. Going back to the turbo, you can definitely see it was balanced here. You can see some of the cuts that they put in right there, shaved off right there, and a little bit right there. It was shaved off. Same thing for this side. You can see that it was shaved off right there. It's crazy though. Like, turboch? What does turboch mean? Like, I really don't know. I really wish it was just turbo or nothing. But this is the baby snail TB25, and we're getting work done. It works. Alright, so the next step would be to bore out this hole here so it can regulate boost pressure evenly. So when we hit our boost target, let's say 5 or 8 pounds, it can kind of maintain that target. As you can see, the flap covers the whole thing perfectly, so we know where our guides are, pretty much the edges here. We're gonna try to use the tools we bought and try to sand this out. Hopefully that works and isn't gonna give us any issues. As you can see, this one right here goes inside here perfectly, and we're just gonna wiggle it around over here. Try to make these holes a little bit bigger. Be careful not to scratch the flap, but that's gonna be the before right here. Let's see what we can do. It's definitely working a little bit here. A lot of material later, we're pretty much done at this point. Again, we're using these tools here. Some of these were a little bit too big to use, but that's my porting job right here. Definitely looks a little bit better than what it was. Opened up the edges here, if you can see that. Opened all that up, and then as well as this whole thing, I kind of really carved in there. Try to make a smooth channel here, a little deeper. So that should work. Pretty happy with the progress so far. Last thing again will be this wastegate, because it's giving me problems, as you guys can see, towards the edge when it tries to close. If I don't have this on here, just take a look. See that? It gets stuck right there. And yes, me porting it a little bit had bigger consequences, but there's so much just play in here that I think if we TIG weld it right there, just like I had kind of mimicking with this wire brush here, it will work fine. And it's so weird because it only works in certain areas. Like if the turbo is mounted the way it should be, like this, it's gonna give me problems closing. But if it's mounted, let's say this way, right? Look at this. Closes no problem. It's just how that flap, the little wiggle that's in here with gravity, it's just the way it closes. So unfortunately, because our turbo is gonna be mounted this way, it's not closing properly, as you can see, which is okay. Just another roadblock, but overall things are looking good. We got the wastegate, we got everything taken care of, we got all the bolts. So clean this up, reinstall it, and then we'll wait for that TIG to come in. Alright, I'm going to just put some pressurized air into the wastegate line, and just let's observe the wastegate flap open. I'm trying to compare the opening here to the opening to the other wastegate, and honestly, with the same amount of boost pressure, right, the forced compressed air, it looks like it's opening up just about the same. Looks like it's very comparable. Maybe it's just opening up a hair earlier, but this is just preliminary testing. This is just preliminary testing, guys. We will be testing this with a gauge and testing it more accurately, but preliminary, this one maybe opens up, this is the Rev 9, opens up a hair earlier than the factory 8-pound spring. So I'm gonna keep comparing them and just trying to see which one will work better to create less boost pressure. So I'm really glad I was able to make this work, because this was not a direct bolt-on. This wastegate here from Rev 9 was not a direct bolt-on here. And I'll explain to you guys what I had to do to make this thing fit. In case we are going to use it, you guys will be prepared. Alright, let's take all this off. Alright guys, Rev 9 wastegate actuator, factory TB25 wastegate actuator. As you can see, the body here was much longer than the TB, and it wouldn't work properly on the turbocharger setup. It was just too long. So originally what I wanted to do, I tried to get a tap and die set right here and just kind of make threads all the way going up, but that did not work. It requires a lot more work than I thought it would. So essentially what I did is I cut some of the threads here from the wastegate actuator rod, and then we also cut some of the adjustable piece here. And with those things out of the way, we have comparable lengths between these wastegate actuators, and now at this point I'm able to run either one. Again, we're going to be testing it just to make sure which one opens faster, which one opens more under lower boost pressure. So let me think about what would be the best way to check this out and determine which one's best for the setup here for the R18 Civic engine. Alright guys, so the way I'm going to measure is I got a digital caliper. I adjusted both of these lengths to be identical right over here, and now I'm going to add the same amount of pressure from my air compressor through this, and then once we put the air pressure in, we'll measure the length of both and we will see which one opens up more. The one that opens up more means it has a softer spring inside, and we're going to be able to run less boost pressure with that wastegate. So let's see which one it is. Let's see if this one's actually advertised as 5 psi, if it's going to hold 5, or this one that says it's 8. Is it going to be 8 pounds, or is it going to be even more? We'll see. I got 126, 126.44 here. Bleed off some of that air. Alright, now we're going to take this wastegate. I don't know why there's two. Maybe if you have a boost pressure regulator, maybe you can put some air on the bottom to help regulate boost. We're just using the top one because we are just running wastegate spring. Here we go. Remember last one was 126.44. Oh, it looks like this advertised 5-pound spring is not a 5-pound spring, guys. I'll double check this, run it a few times, and get back to you with the results. You can also see we drilled out these extra holes here so we can align the wastegate appropriately with the flap here. Speaking of the flap is giving me issues. It's not closing, it's getting clogged up here. Let me show you guys real quick what's going on. I bored it out a little bit, and you see now it's opening and closing just right. No problems with that. But when I clock the turbo, the way it's gonna sit, let's say this way, look, I can't close it. It's getting stuck on the upper side here. I didn't even bore it out that much on top, but it is getting stuck. I'm not sure if it was getting stuck as much factory. I think intermittently here and there it did, but this right here doesn't close at all. So we're gonna have to adjust this flap, probably weld it tight like right there, so it doesn't have this play in it, and then it'll work no problem, because you see it does close. It just has to be adjusted properly. So we'll probably have to close it like this, tack it up a few places here. I just gotta get a hold of a TIG welder, because at this point I don't have a TIG welder. We still gotta get that going, and then we should be good with that. And obviously we bored out the, obviously we made a tap into the compressor side housing, so we can tap another screw in there, so again it's aligned properly. So at this point here, it will be something along these lines. It'll be something along these lines here. And the reason we made these extra holes is because I wanted to clock the vacuum line right here. You see it's going to go out here and go directly in here. So it's just going to be a small vacuum line. If I was going to run it with the factory holes, look, this is pointing up, then it would have to route back down. Or if I went this way here, it's getting already stuck towards the, if it goes this way, you can see it's pretty much hitting the compressor housing. There won't be any space for a vacuum line. So this is like the sweet spot right there, the shortest route possible, yet it still aligns well with the wastegate. Alright guys, I reached my verdict. This Rev 9 wastegate is the one that's actually raising the flap faster. So as you can see, I've done a lot of testing here at this point and going back from one wastegate to the other, and the Rev 9 wastegate definitely is the lighter one. It definitely has the softer spring inside. Again, it's advertised as 5. We'll see how it goes. Also, depending on how much you preload your wastegate actuator right here, right? If you keep turning this down and making it super tight, so when it goes on onto this wastegate, you see the difference right there. You can stretch this on, but the more stretch you have, you're gonna have more preload, and it's gonna take more than whatever the wastegate spring is to open up this flap. So at this point, guys, I'm pretty happy with everything. Right, we made the wastegate fit, right? We adjusted everything to spec. We got the extra hole we needed in the compressor housing to hold our wastegate actuator. The wastegate actuator bracket had to be flipped in order for this to work. At this point, we got our oil drain on the bottom. We got our oil feed right on the top, right here. There is 2 more things that I want to do. One of the things is I want to make sure I bore out this hole a little bit better. I started boring it out. I got to bore it out more. But one thing I noticed is after I started boring this out, this wastegate flap starts getting stuck. It's not closing properly here anymore. So as you can see, I got a little bit of a wire here holding this in place. And if I got something here holding it in place, I can open and close it no problem. So essentially, like I said before, this is going to have to get TIG welded. I'm not sure what the consequences of it having it welded compared to a little bit of play here might be. But I mean, it definitely beats the alternative, which is running a turbo with a half open wastegate here, which isn't going to create any boost. So overall, I'm really happy. I'm going to get to it, guys, start grinding this off some more, trying to open up the further openings there, and then we'll get back to you guys with the final results. And then at that point, the turbo for the most part should be all ready. At most, what I might have to do is clock the bottom half a little bit, and it's got this crazy C-clip. You can see it right there. You see the hot side is on bolts right there. You can clock it by adjusting those bolts and loosening them, but the cold side has this C-clip retainer, which is kind of hard to undo. definitely to take off is a nightmare. So I'm using these needle nose pliers, kind of bent the tips there, so when I put it in, bent it, I was able to clock the turbo no problem. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to work, and much better, much cleaner. As you guys can see, it's wrapping the day up right now. Got the turbo cleaned up, clocked again. You guys already know everything that's going on if you're staying tuned with me. So to be honest, guys, that's going to be a wrap for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Pretty much took me all day to mess around with this. Pretty cool, pretty excited, and let's see what happens next. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.